They are called Loving Harmony, as of today, I think. Richard and Vicki and I were bragging about our musicians to each other last night. Thank you all for being here. I love Virginia. I worked for a while in D.C. and lived in Arlington, and I still miss Virginia, especially in the spring and fall. It is just so beautiful. And Richard and Vicki and I have been friends so long we can't quite remember how long. Before they were ministers, we met. As ministers, we get called when someone is going through a difficult change, when something challenging has happened or something's coming up and they don't know what to expect. Are any of you going through a transition in your life? Or anybody you know? Yeah, okay, thought so. So you've probably heard the quote that when one door closes, another one does open, but it can be hell in the hallway. You're in the hallway when something has changed, when you know your life will never be the same again, but you're not sure what's coming next. I first talked about this at Unity of Fairfax years ago, and I was astounded by the reaction. People were so grateful just to have a name for what they were going through. They said, "Yes, I'm in the hallway." And they were also grateful to hear there's light at the door. I had to add light at the door to the title Hell in the Hallway. My agent said I really needed to sound a note of hope. So if you use the hallway as a metaphor for going through transition in your life, it falls naturally into three parts. What put you in the hallway, what do you do while you're there, and how the heck do you get out? Notice getting out is not the first thing to work on. A lot of bad decisions can be made in a panic to feel better. Hold that thought. What puts you in the hallway, it could be the death of a loved one. Adjusting to life after any loss is a hallway. Divorce, losing a job, filing for bankruptcy. Sometimes the door slams very suddenly. You get a phone call with terrible news or a scary diagnosis, and everything has changed. Sometimes the door creaks shut. You know your child will be leaving home in a year or two, or maybe you're planning to retire. When you know it's coming, there's a hallway on the way to the event and then a hallway of adjustment after it happens. Some hallways are chosen. Anytime you change jobs, move to a new city, and you're in a place of uncertainty, it can be uncomfortable, even though you chose it. I chose the hallway when I left my job as a reporter in DC to go to ministerial school. And I was terrified, even though I knew I was on my right path. But that was a long period of uncertainty. Some hallways are entirely within us. In Unity, we call that feeling divine restlessness. It's when you know there's something more, you know something's got to give, you just don't know what yet. You're being called higher spiritually, but it can feel like wandering in the wilderness or a very dark hallway. Sometimes entire groups go through hallways together. Think of an office staff waiting to find out who's getting laid off Friday. Natural disasters create massive hallways for people. In the town where I live, in Wimberley, Texas, outside of Austin, we had a devastating flood on Memorial Weekend last May. Homes were destroyed. A couple of families were swept away in the river. And we've been in a hallway ever since then. Life in our town has changed for all of us as a group. Even the scenery has changed. And we're still sorting out what's next. There's also a type of hallway that I didn't realize until people started telling me I was leaving something out. Call it the endless hallway. I hear about it from families where someone is mentally ill, or maybe a child has Down syndrome. Caregiving in general is a long hallway, but most periods of caregiving eventually end, except for some people, and their situation won't ever change or get better in their lifetime. The only door to be opened is within, to find peace and acceptance. It's hard even to hear about this, isn't it? I encourage you to feel whatever you feel in the hallway. You can feel it now or dredge it up in therapy 10 years from now. And yes, it hurts. And yes, your life might never be the same. And no, you don't know what's next. Lean into the pain. I know that's easier said than done. But people who successfully move through the hallway move through pain. There is no way around it. Become willing to be uncomfortable in the interest of your own spiritual growth. It's tempting, though, just to look for the first doorway out of here. And I said, hold that thought that getting out is not the first thing to work on. Let me tell you a story about that. I worked with a minister in Dallas named John Webster, who handled all the pastoral care. He visited the sick, he prayed with people, he counseled. John was about 80 when he wrote his hallway story for me. It started with the death of his first wife, who died 2 days before John's 40th birthday. At the time, he had 2 girls at home and a job that required him to travel all the time. So what did John do? He got married again as soon as he could. Someone to cook and clean and take care of the kids. And years later, he said he really had been looking for a housekeeper, and that's how he treated her. That marriage lasted a year. But he tried again. The third marriage lasted 8 years, but during that time he felt like he did a lot of damage to his relationship with his younger daughter, who was still at home. Then finally he started learning spiritual principles in unity. He was able to change his life from the inside out. So he married one more time, happily, healed his relationship with his daughter eventually, and he served and taught and uplifted people until his death about 5 years ago. John learned there's no quick way out of the hallway, and the discomfort can be intense. There's a spiritual author I like named Mirabai Starr. Her 14-year-old daughter was killed in a car accident, and Mirabai Starr called her hallway a time of radical unknowingness. But she vowed to her daughter who died, I'm going to honor you by not turning away from this fire of grief. This fire of grief. Every hallway includes some grief because something has been lost even if you chose it yourself. So feel whatever you feel, and remember to let other people support you. We will all be in the hallway at times, so we can support each other. So you're in the hallway. Now what do you do? The early hallway days are a terribly vulnerable time, not only because your life has changed, but because it's so easy to beat yourself up. Why didn't I see this coming? I should have taken better care of my health. I should have paid more attention to the money. I've been a terrible parent, wife, husband, daughter, son. And sometimes, how could God let this happen? You hear how we're creating our own hell in the hallway with our thoughts? It doesn't have to be hell. It can be a time of visioning the infinite possibilities, but most people don't start there. It's also important to know that the spiritual work of the hallway does not depend on the circumstances that put you there. So what I mean by that is, yes, death is different from divorce, is different from losing a job. And over time, you'll have to address the specifics of your situation, like looking for another job. But the spiritual work is the same, no matter the circumstances. And the spiritual work is going to sound pretty basic to you. I have a friend at home who very dutifully bought the book when it came out, and a few weeks later, she was going through a tough time, and she saw that book staring up at her from the nightstand. She knew she was in a hallway of change, so she picked up the book and read it, thinking, I know this, I know that, I've taught that. And then she finally asked herself, but am I doing it? Spiritual principles are pretty basic. They're simple but not easy. I don't believe there are advanced spiritual laws. The advanced courses come in your own life when you apply the same principles to new and different situations. No matter how long you've been a student of truth, no matter how long you've been on a spiritual path, the question is always, How's your life working? So you take the spiritual principles you know and apply them during your time in the hallway. It starts with acceptance. You see that a door has closed and latched, so you finally turn around and look at where you are now. Ah, this is the hallway. My life really has changed. So now what? Here is my gentle suggestion to help you accept whatever has happened. Consider that it's not happening to you, it's happening for you. What shows up in your life is there for a reason, and somehow it is for your highest good, for your soul's growth. And for me, that shifts the question. Okay, so if this is happening for me, where is the good? What gifts is this bringing? You'll probably see it in small ways at first. The friends who check on you, the love you feel from others, maybe the depth of your own prayers. And the good won't stop. Everything that happens in your life brings gifts and answers your soul's deepest desires. We draw to us exactly what we need in this lifetime, most of it unconsciously. But when we become conscious and participate in that process, miracles happen. So I know a woman named Brenda, who is one of many people I know who have had cancer and said later, I wouldn't wish it on anyone, but I wouldn't trade the spiritual growth it brought me. Do you know people who've said that? That cancer was a friend and a teacher? So Brenda says for a long time after she was diagnosed with breast cancer, she was stuck in why me? Because she already knew we create our own reality. Why would she have created this? She was about 4 weeks into chemo and woke up one day and just knew, if I'm going to heal this, I have to take responsibility for creating it. Now, that does not mean she wanted cancer. It doesn't mean she sat around thinking about cancer until she got it. It also doesn't mean that she cut off all treatment and just went to meditate herself well. It was about becoming a co-creator with God, consciously drawing on the one presence and power within her to change what she could. So she would ask herself, am I really being positive? Am I really taking care of myself? Am I listening to the messages from my body? And she put her spiritual tools to work. She released the outcome and focused on each day, the present moment, making a point to appreciate every moment. So on the days when she could only get from the bed to the sofa, she was grateful to make it that far. And she felt compassion for every person she met. Brenda got well, but even if she hadn't, living in appreciation and compassion is pretty much the highest spiritual plane we can achieve. I was surprised how many people who told me about going through physical illnesses said they had to take responsibility for getting well, for creating their own health. And notice how Brenda said she let go of the outcome? Acceptance leads to surrender. Our pain is in the resistance. It's in saying, this is not how things should be. So for me, surrender means giving up that stubborn belief that life should be fair or make sense at any given moment. Sometimes surrender comes when life gets so bad there's nothing left to do. It happens sometimes during a screaming meltdown, sometimes more quietly and slowly. I don't believe you have to hit absolute bottom in order to surrender. You can choose it. Surrender is a feeling of peace and trusting that all is well, no matter how things turn out. So, acceptance, this is the way things are now, and surrender, all is well, even if I can't see it. There is good here for me. Another spiritual tool to use in the hallway that I wish this were not true is forgiveness. No matter what put you in the hallway, you probably have someone to forgive. The boss who fired you, the spouse who walked out, maybe a doctor missed an early diagnosis, maybe a parent who needed so much care at the end. The Greek word forgive means to untie the knot. We have to untangle ourselves from the past in order to move forward. And you know, forgiving does not condone the act. It doesn't let anyone off the hook. There's a story in the book about a woman who forgave the man who raped her. It was not okay for him to do what he did, and she's glad he's in prison. But she also knew it was not okay for her to hate. She didn't want one event and one sick man to control the rest of her life. So she became willing to forgive and didn't even realize it was happening until one day she took some teddy bears to the rape crisis center and didn't feel much of anything. No knot in her stomach, no energy around her own situation. She was healed. She was free. Forgiveness frees you. And of course, prayer is a crucial part of the hallway. One man who was in a coma for nearly 2 months said later he could feel the prayers for him, feel it physically. He said it was like a bottlenose dolphin might nudge a drowning man toward the surface of the water. I love that image. So I can offer you 2 prayers for your spiritual work in the hallway, and I'll warn you they are powerful. The first one is reveal what needs to be revealed and heal what needs to be healed. You can spend the rest of your life working on what comes out of that. Reveal what needs to be revealed and heal what needs to be healed. And the other one is lead me where you need me and speak to me in ways I cannot possibly misunderstand. Now, that takes some courage. Pray that and then watch what happens. If your life is like mine, you'll end up in unexpected places doing things you never thought you could. So see, your time in the hallway is never wasted. Use it for your growth and learning. It can become a pivot point for your life before and after the hallway. And how do you get out? Well, let me ask you first, are you sure you want to get out? Because the hallway can become really comfortable. Some people install carpet and air conditioning. I mean, there's a payoff. You might get lots of sympathy and attention while you're in the hallway. You might be stuck in telling your story. It's become your identity. You might feel guilty about moving on. And leaving the hallway requires some decisions, like answering the question, what do you want? Because you are the creator of your experience and you get to design your life, always. So here's what I know for sure about leaving the hallway. Consciousness shifts first. And by that I mean your thoughts, feelings, and beliefs, the ones you're aware of and the ones you're not, rise to a new level. They expand. You might not see a change in your outer circumstances yet, but life starts to feel different. You're looking forward more than back. You start to ask yourself, what do I want? This is where you get to pull out all the fun spiritual tools. Write your vision, imagine a new life, set intentions, and let the universe figure out how to make it happen. When I coach people, it's mostly about how to get out of the hallway, how to design the life you want from now on. And I'm very aware that I'm saying you can create a life you love right after I told you to surrender and let go of the outcome. It's both and. The spiritual path is full of paradoxes. Our job is to create the conditions for abundant life. It's like preparing a garden and planting seeds. We're not in control of how the sun and soil and rain combine to bring those seeds out of the ground and turn them into flowers or vegetables. But we create the conditions for that flowering, and we decide which seeds to plant. That's what happens when we set intentions. You don't have to visualize every detail. You don't have to know how it's going to work out. You just set the direction you want to go and let life unfold to reveal your highest good. Once you set an intention, exactly the right people will show up to guide you, ideas and money will materialize, and doors will fly open. Except when they don't. There's a whole chapter in the book called, Why Isn't This Working? And one woman said, what if you try to follow your bliss and your bliss doesn't want you? Isn't that sad? So you probably can expect delays in the hallway. Although sometimes everything falls into place so fast your head spins, but delays can be a form of guidance. Sometimes a delay gives you time to realize you're asking for the wrong things. There's something else you really want. Maybe a delay is necessary to line up the people and circumstances you need. And, of course, delays can be caused by blocks within us. A common one is fear. You might be afraid of change. You might be afraid of failure and afraid of success. You might believe you're not worthy of what you want. There's more inner work to do. So don't worry if the process is slow. Consciousness has to shift first. Inner change precedes outer change. That's why we do all this spiritual work in the hallway, so we can open the next door onto what we really, truly want. The hallway is a busy place. It might start with panic, blame, shame, anger, fear, but eventually comes acceptance. This is where I am now. And surrender. This must be happening for me, so I'll look for the good. I know God is in every situation. And then use your spiritual practices, forgiveness, prayer. Let others pray for you. You can borrow their faith. Then when you're ready to move forward, invoke the spiritual laws you know. You are a divine being put on earth with all the attributes of God. You are the creator of your experience. Your thoughts attract whatever you want or need. And the best news is, each of us has a higher self that never sleeps. It is always working on your behalf. We can work with that divine self or not. We can live either by design or default. It's worth it to stay awake, to pay attention, to use all the spiritual tools at your disposal, knowing that there might be delays or surprises, and even those have a divine purpose. There are no victims, only volunteers. Our souls volunteered for spiritual growth in this human lifetime. Being in the hallway is an opportunity for that growth. God is in every circumstance. Good is in every circumstance. And your good is waiting behind the next door. Thanks so much for having me here today.